So thanks guys for taking the time. Y'all were Spencer, you were just out of the country, right? Or both of you were out of the country.
I was out of the country, yeah.
Okay. How was that? You were in Asia, right?
I was in Taipei, Taiwan
Okay.
for a week,
Okay.
and then I went and visited my brother and his family in Moscow, Russia for 4 weeks.
How is that?
That was an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I told everybody that I knew that if I had an expectation of what my time in Russia was going to be like, it wouldn't have been met. So it was like just the most, it was like very surreal. So many people. There's like 12 million people that live in Moscow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, just Moscow alone. So it's massive, but not a lot of them speak English, and so I didn't speak at all while I was there.
Huh.
It was very like.
Does your brother speak Russian?
Yeah, so he speaks.
Okay.
And he like talks garbage on the Russian that he speaks, but he's like really good. Like he knows how to have conversations, and then he knows how to like translate. That's
wonderful. Impressive.
Yeah, it was great. And he's been there for about 5 years now. So
okay.
He's been able to pick up the language and use it, and it was wild.
That sounds like a fun trip though.
Dude, it was bizarre. It was I would definitely go back just because it was so interesting. And there's so much history in Moscow that like I was there for 4 weeks and I still don't even think that I barely just like cracked the surface. So I would love to go back. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I've never been, and I don't know when I will go. I'm looking into Ecuador with my sister this year. I don't know if either of you have ever been to South America. No. Okay.
But I mean, I would believe that it would be easier to get into Ecuador as an American. So.
Yep. Probably.
Yeah, I shouldn't have any problem doing that.
Angela, I haven't talked to you or seen you. I talked to Spencer, so great meeting you. Very excited about this. I've never interviewed two different people at the same time, so this will be fun. Y'all have to figure out maybe like some tag team who goes when and stuff, but I would just love to start off. This is going to be fun. Love to start off by whoever would like to go first. Angela, actually, we'll have you go first. Sharing just a little bit about your story, who you are, who made you who you are today. As you know, this is about mental health, this podcast. So sharing maybe your mental health journey or how you got into this space would be great.
Sure. Great. Thank you. So I'd say first, I grew up with a lot of music in my house. So my dad played guitar. I started piano lessons when I was 7 and harp when I was 11. And so my family, we grew up in kind of a smaller neighborhood, not the best neighborhood. So my parents knew very early on that I needed to get involved with some kind of positive way to spend my time. Otherwise, I would fill that space with other things.
Yeah.
So I got involved with music really, really early, which was great. But my parents didn't have a lot of money. So they got me in piano lessons early. And then my piano teacher was like, "Oh, you're really good. I also teach the harp and the organ." And I was like, well, at the time I was 11, right? So the organ is kind of like the piano. So I wanted to and I went to my parents and they were like, "Cute. We can't just buy you a harp." Yeah. So
organs are cheaper.
Yeah. So they said, we will support you, but you have to walk to your teacher's house every day to practice. And if you do that for a year, then we'll help you get a harp. I said, okay. So I did that. So I walked to my teacher's house for a year to practice and take lessons. Yeah. And so then after a year, they actually remortgaged the house so they could give me the harp, which I still. Yeah.
Wow.
And so for me, music has always been very special. Now, fast forward, when I went to college, right before I went to high school, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. And so I spent the majority of my time in high school, not only going through high school, which is a wonderful journey for everybody, also dealing with my dad going through chemo and radiation, right? So I spent a lot of time at the hospital with my family, and then also trying to balance school and work and whatever kind of fun that I could have in that time.
Yeah.
Then my first year in college, my dad actually passed away, and so I was working full time. And so the beauty is, I'd actually, after my first year, I had taken a semester off because it was I'm spending a lot of money. I paid my whole way through school.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want to do with my life. And it was in that semester I took off right after the first year is when my dad passed away. So it was a really kind of interesting time where everyone was saying, don't do that. Don't take time off school. You're never going to go back. This is the worst decision ever. It ended up being the best decision ever because I was able to take time out, spend time with my family,
Mm-hmm.
and just be there, right? Like spend time with people.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a pivotal moment for me because I knew time is precious. No one gets out of this life alive. That's the one thing we share is we all have the same amount of time here, and how we spend it makes us who we are.
Yeah.
Right after my father passed away, my mom started having a very big breakdown. So I kind of became that rock for the family. And that's when I realized that therapy was really helpful and important.
Mm-hmm.
And because as soon as, my mom thought she was talking to God, she thought she was going to have, she was just going through a lot. And so when we got her into therapy, though, everything changed and everything kind of leveled out. So for me, time, being aware how you're spending your time and making sure that you're just there for people when they need you. And so I was very grateful to meet Spencer a couple of years ago. We've been working on music projects, and I'll let you share a little bit more about that. But then starting this group together over the last 2 years has been very rewarding and fulfilling. And so I'm sure we'll more into that later.
Okay. Yeah. Spencer.
Yeah. So I'm Spencer, co-founded Music Minds Matter with Angela about 2 years ago. Well, I guess recently Music Minds Matter has kind of like come to the forefront, but 2 years ago, Angela and I started a group called the Mental Wellness Meetup, where we provide kind of a safe space for musicians to come in and talk about their mental and wellness. For me, music has always been a part of my life, which has been amazing. I grew up in a very musical household. My mom is a singer and she plays piano. My dad plays guitar and sings. Both, like, I have brothers who play guitars, electric, bass, like the works. All of my siblings are wildly talented when it comes to like the musical field. And so I kind of always grew up with it. My folks split when I was younger, but I didn't think that really like affected me too much then. Because I grew up in like a musical family, I always kind of wore the hat as like the entertainer for any like family gatherings or anything. So I would always do like Jim Carrey was my favorite actor growing up. So like, it didn't matter. Like I would show up to family events and gatherings and just do like Ace Ventura stuff, like just like to make people laugh, bringing people joy in that in that fashion and just entertainment was always kind of it was like the thing that I did. So I went to school up in Greeley at the University of Northern Colorado for musical theater. And that's where I met Jonathan, who plays guitar in the band. And he and I got together then, kind of realized halfway through university that music theater probably wasn't the best thing for us. We graduated with our degree, but shortly after school, we got together and started playing music. It was a very interesting transition for me going from like the acting world to the music world. Just because in the entertainment industry, there's always this, like the politics. I know that the politics are relevant in any industry that you're in, but for these ones in particular, it's not like what you know, it's who you know. And that was something that really bogged me down, like that I could not come to terms with. So being in the music industry in Denver for the last like 5 years, I've started to realize that there are aspects of the industry that are really damaging to me, and like I kind of just like swept them under the rug a little bit and like didn't really think about it until about 2 years ago when there's a Facebook group page called the Denver Music Scene that was started just by some music community members, just to like kind of go in and talk about if you're touring, like what venues to go to. It's just a community to help musicians with kind of like the business or like professional stuff.
For sure.
So I outreached that page because I was like, so I'm losing it. Like being in this industry is the worst. And I don't know if anyone else is struggling with this, but is there like a group of people that we can, or that is there a group in which we can go and like chat about our struggles? And the unexpected response was, no, there isn't anything like that, but you should totally start that. And I was like, great. That was not what I was expecting at all, nor was the answer I was hoping for. But from that, was birthed the Mental Wellness Meetup. And again, Angela and I have been hosting that for the last 2 years. It's been incredible, providing a safe space for musicians and members of the music community, a safe space to come in and talk about their mental unwellness and not be afraid to discuss it and chat about like the reality in which being a musician in the industry and how it affects your mental struggle is. And so for us, it was just a very real, like, we saw the success from the first month, and so we just need to do that. We've seen kind of growth, anywhere from like 10 to 12 musicians on average per month, and we just celebrated our second anniversary the beginning of February. So
awesome!
It's
congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a wild journey, and I think from the success of that, we started Music Minds Matter, and now we received some grant funding from Denver Arts and Venues.
Amazing.
Received almost $10,000 worth of grants from the Denver Music Advancement Fund. And so now the meetup is just kind of a portion of like a much bigger picture in which Music Minds Matter is kind of the platform. So we're really excited to like start growing and helping musicians in the Denver music scene and then expanding that. Yeah,
we're going to get into Music Minds Matter in a little bit. I want to, I didn't know both of y'all's backstory, but Angela, you said you sort of took on that rock, that sort of stable person that's taking care of people. And then Spencer, for you, same thing, like you were that entertainer making people feel happy. And so it seems natural that you took on almost, in a way, another burden, but a burden that's going to drive real engagement and real help for people. And so you start this meetup. And what are people experiencing when they go to this? What are some of the things that they're saying? What are some of the things that they're experiencing? Because again, there was nothing like this. Someone's like, hey, you do it. And you're like, okay, sure. So now there's a space for these people that they never had before. How did that impact them?
Well, I'll first say that, like, I think it's very interesting that you say that, like, Angela was the rock and I was the entertainer in that aspect. And I think as our roles in Music Minds Matter, I think it's like totally the same thing. Where she's the one that keeps the wheels on, and I'm just like the guy who, hey, come see what we're doing, you know? So it's like, in that aspect, it's like such a wonderful partnership. But like, to answer your question, I think that like, we're not industry professionals, and we know that. I've had a little background. I worked at the Aurora Mental Health Center for 2.5 years as an employment specialist, in which you don't really need any kind of like licensure to work in that position specifically. You just need a college degree. But in my time there, you kind of really understand like the professionals, what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, what the license like actually means, who's able to help who's able to diagnose. Like, you start to understand the vernacular a little bit. So for us, being musicians first, starting the meetup, it was like a very clear statement of like, look, we're not here to save anybody. We really have that power. We're not offering that, that ability. So for us, it was just like, hey, so this is a safe space for people to come in and kind of vent their frustrations with how the Denver music scene is. I know that the Denver music scene itself is touted as like an A market, and it's like really exploding in that sense. But really, I mean, we struggle, just as much, as any music scene. And the fact that that's kind of like brushed under the rug is kind of what we're here for, is to address that. And if you are feeling like mentally unwell, it's okay to start those conversations and have those conversations.
So I was going to add too, because it was funny when we first started it, we said, okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to meet at a coffee shop. You reach out to Hook. So what I first did is I did a bunch of research, right? Because I wanted to be prepared. So I had prompting questions. I was like, what if nobody shows up? Like, what if we're just there by ourselves? We're just going to drink a bunch of coffee. It was like, but what was nice is that people showed up, which was cool. And then we actually didn't need the agenda. So we kind of took it off a little bit, because of course in our first one, it was like, we didn't have a format yet. We just knew that we wanted to have this safe space for people. And I think one of the things that stood out to me, if you remember, we asked 2 different questions, and I can't remember both of them, but I know one of them was, okay, everyone close your eyes and raise your hand if you've ever experienced like anxiety. right? So then people would say, okay, open your eyes. And like everyone had their hand raised.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did another question like that. Maybe it was around depression or social
Mhm.
anxiety or something.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing happened. And what we found is as we went around the room, the conversation really happened very organically. And the people that were comfortable talking were very comfortable talking. Other people just sat and listened.
Yeah.
But what we kept hearing over and over is like, I just feel so alone. I just feel so alone. And I think Spencer mentioned at the end of the meeting, he said, I just want to point out that, you know, we're all happy that you're here. And what we heard often from multiple folks here is that you feel like you're alone, but we're all here together. We're all experiencing the same thing. So you're definitely not alone. And that's been kind of a statement that we've used often.
I think the power of that opening exercise of like having everyone close their eyes and raise their hand, like immediately when you open your eyes and you see other people with their hands up, that's a clear indicator that you aren't alone.
Yeah.
So that was kind of powerful. We had a pretty good turnout, like a solid showing at that.
Yeah.
And that gave us the encouragement to keep it going. And it's been, going for 2 years strong. It's been wonderful.
So that, I'm just writing this down because that hits me, like, because, you know, I started this podcast for that exact reason. You know, I saw that, you know, I'm in my apartment right now, right? And I work from home and I've got my own business and it's about entrepreneurship and mental health. And I started digging into the research like you did, Angela, and seeing like the data, you know, 3 times more likely to have depression and all these different things. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, we're not all alone, but we kind of are because we're not connected. We're not. And I think what a lot of people just want is they want to feel understood. They want to know that like you understand them, you understand what they're going through, and you accept that as is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's amazing that you were able to have that happen in the first meeting.
Yeah.
And so then over time, how did that meetup develop? You know, you said you've been doing it for 2 years now. Have things changed? Have you implemented certain things that people have really connected with? What does that look like over the last 2 years?
Yeah, I think that we're constantly learning and we're constantly evolving. I think for the most part, we run the meetups the same exact way, with the idea of we go around and we introduce ourselves and we share like successes and challenges that we faced, you know, over the last month or so.
Yeah.
And if we hear kind of the same thing resonate throughout the group, then that's kind of where the discussion goes. I mean, it's, again, we're not the licensed professionals. So it's like, okay, I heard that you guys were struggling with this. So let's talk about that. Let's lean into that. Share our stories of when we dealt with that and how we got through it.
Yeah.
And I think so in that aspect, it's been really great. We've in the realm of evolving, we've started to invite licensed therapists to come to our meetups so that if someone experiences crisis at the meetup, they actually have a professional that they can talk to. And for us, that's been very invaluable because then it kind of alleviates some of that stress and potential tension that we feel, because we've had instances where people have shown up to the meetup and they've shared, but then after the meetup, they ask for one-on-one time and then they kind of unload on you. And it's really hard to sit there and hear the stories and be the best you can do is be as present as you can for them and just listen to them. But like knowing your limitations as an individual, you can just say, I'm sorry that happened to you. And then that starts to wear on you a little bit. You know, I have like an emotional well myself. And so when I'm taking on people's stuff, my well starts to fill. And when it overflows, I have nothing left for me, you know? So it's like, so it's trying to find and maintain that balance. So trying to partner with licensed professionals has been something that we've been working towards. And I think those are like the next steps for us in our growth for the meetup, I think.
And something else we've also implemented to the meetups now is when we do our introductions, we also do a stoplight check-in. So everyone does a check-in. So you either green, yellow, or red, and you can get creative. Like I've been burnt orange before, lime green.
Oh yeah,
that's fun.
Sprite can green or something, you know.
Yeah, but it's a healthy exercise to do it in a group, but also just personally too. It's because you look and say, so how am I feeling right now in this moment? Am I green? Does all systems go? Am I in a happy, good place? Am I yellow, kind of in the middle? Could go either way. Or am I red? And there's no judgment, right? So what it does, it helps us communicate and understand where people are coming from. So I think so often too, where, you know, everyone's always seeing things through their own lens. And I might be red today, but if you don't know that and I don't communicate that and I'm short with you, you might think, oh, she's pissed at me, or like, what else did I do? it actually has nothing to do with you. It's like, I'm just not in a very good place. So by doing that, it allows people to, one, do a self check-in just personally, but then to communicate that in a way that we're just kind of aware, so we know where people are at that time.
And I wanted to go back to something you said, Joey, about when you're not alone, but you're kind of alone. And I think it's like, you said something that resonated with me, is like, people just, they want to be understood, but more than anything, they just want to be heard. They want to, they want that validation of like, they live their lives and they get to this point, this breaking point, because they feel completely misunderstood or nobody's listening to them. And that's why they feel isolated and alone. And I think that through basic and effective communication, which is kind of what the stoplight check-in that we do at our meetups is, it allows you to kind of like set the boundaries. And if you feel like you're not being heard, that self check-in is actually monumental, because then you're actually like checking in with yourself and saying like, okay, maybe I haven't been listening to myself as well. So that's kind of where it starts. And then to be able to surround yourself with people who are struggling with something similar to you, it's a very vulnerable thing at first, but at the end of the 2-hour meetup, you can sense like a camaraderie between everybody, all of these, and it's something special.
Yeah, I think we talked about this on the phone, Spencer, a couple months ago, was that idea of being present in the effective communication, of just having that person feel understood and having them feel heard is extremely powerful, especially if you don't have that training, especially if you, I don't know exactly what it's called right now. It's the mental health
First aid training.
Mental health first aid training. And so for someone that doesn't have that, they can only do so much. And so from y'all's perspective, it sounds like you've become really, really keen on learning how to listen to people and learning how to be present. So for those people listening that they don't have their first mental health first aid training, what can they do to help someone going through that? Maybe they don't have the stoplight check right now. Maybe they're just having a conversation with their brother, their sister, their coworker, their partner, their co-founder. How can they sort of tap into that level of communication that allows them to better help someone going through mental health obstacles?
Sure. Yeah, I think that one of the ways, so I recently became certified in mental health first aid instruction. So I've been certified in the adult and the youth for just about 3 years. And now I'm able to instruct. So I'm able to get with a group of people and certify folks in mental health first aid. And I will say that during the 8-hour training for certification, you go over a lot of the kind of essentials on how to help someone who's going through the crisis. Yeah. Something that was so shocking and surprising to me is that some of like the key components are just like things that we can practice every day. So that they have kind of this, what is it, like an anagram? What is it, like the ALG? What is that called?
I don't know if that's true.
I think I know. Where it's like it starts with a word, and then I don't know what it. I know what you're saying.
It sounds right.
Yeah,
sure,
we'll go with that.
You can edit this if we need to, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Comment below what the real thing is.
Too bad this isn't live. We'd have the Facebook feed. You're wrong. It's not anagram.
Oh, you idiot. But so like they give you kind of that like wordscape that helps you kind of remember these rules. And one of them, the one that starts with L, is listen non-judgmentally. And when you say it out loud, you're like, oh, so this is to help someone who's going through a mental health crisis. But like, that's something that I can practice literally every day. So there's like a lot of things that you're going through in the training where you're just like hearing these kind of these motifs or these rules that are like, well, these could be things that I practice every day. Like someone doesn't have to be going through a mental health crisis in order to practice this. It's just like really how to practice being a better person, and like kind of taking yourself out of it is like another one where it's like, it's really not about you, it's about someone else. Things that we can practice on a daily basis that actually just make us better people. And I think that that's like, I mean, the most important thing that resonated with me with someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis is totally listening non-judgmentally. They're hearing their story, hearing how they got there, and being a support for them in an instance where they have no one, or they feel like they have no support or no one to rely on. That's like, it's invaluable, I think.
Yeah, to add to that, and I'm sure we've heard this or different versions of this, but like listen to hear the other person, don't listen
Mm,
to respond. Because
yeah.
I think oftentimes too, especially now in a world where everything is digital and on social, and you're kind of like formatting these responses, but you're in a real conversation, you almost feel like you need to respond right away instead of just hearing what the person is saying. There's a great video, and I bring it up all the time, and I think we're going to do our own version of it. But it's like, how are you? But how are you really? So when
Mm,
you ask, how are you? How often do you say, oh, I'm good, how are you?
mm-hmm.
That's good, it's a great day outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other person will maybe say the exact same like planned thing, or maybe they were like, oh, I'm okay, but this thing at work, and they kind of dive into their own thing, kind of unprompted, arguably, instead of just saying, well, how are you really? Like,
Yeah.
how is your day been? How are you feeling? Do a check-in, and then listen to what they say. It's
Absolutely.
quite simple.
And more people are like more likely to respond with a very true and honest reaction when they know that you're asking, by like asking the question twice,
Yeah.
almost taking their first answer as like, okay, cool, answering, but like now you can shed your skin and tell me how you're doing really. A lot of people respond to that, and once they kind of unload a little bit, the relationship between the person who asked and the person who responded is a little bit stronger. Like that tether is a little bit stronger because
Mm-hmm.
you were both able to be vulnerable, one in asking how they're doing really,
Yeah.
and then one in sharing how you're truly feeling. So and that effective communication, it's how you build stronger bridges with people.
And connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful. So are there any specific times that you can remember with either the, how are you really, or just listening non-judgmentally where it was truly impactful in that situation, whether on your side as the person listening, or on, you could just tell from the other person's perspective, was there a time that was extremely valuable?
Mm-hmm. Do you have one?
Well, I think one of the more extreme example might be at our meetup when we had someone who openly expressed suicidal ideation. When we were going through, and this is someone that was not connected in our network. They found us through meetup.com. And the conversation was evolving, and they kind of just opened up and they felt comfortable. And it was really interesting to watch how the whole group responded, because with that kind of like discussion, it can be a little bit uncomfortable. But also luckily Spencer was there, and Jonathan was there, and we all kind of supported this person, but in a non-judgmental way. And we were able to ultimately get them help after the meetup. But that was, one, it was surprising, but two, it was also showed me at least that this is something that's going to help people just have the conversation, but also get the help that they need.
Mm-hmm. I also think that we try to ask the question on a more regular basis. So we use actually Mondays. We started this mental wellness Monday on social medias, on just a weekly check-in with asking people how they're doing. And so I have found, like, through doing this, and I suppose we've been doing it pretty consistently for just like the last couple of months now,
Yeah.
but the feedback and the response has been overwhelming. It's been incredible. And in that practice, it's been resounding, the support. People will answer the question and they'll kind of like let me know how they're doing, but then again, the community, for other people who have responded to it, they'll actually go into other people's responses and say, like, I'm here for you, anything I can do, let me know, kind of thing. And also it's challenged me on how I respond to people when they ask me how I'm doing. So now I'm less likely to throw up that facade of like, oh yeah, I'm fine, like things are great. Now I take it to heart when people take the time to ask me how I'm doing. If I am fine, then I can totally say that with confidence, but it allows me to be more honest and more vulnerable in my responses. Because if we're going to sit here and ask people how they're doing, really expect the truest version of that, then we have to be able to reciprocate that. So that's actually been a very interesting and a very humbling experience too.
Yeah, I think that's just extremely powerful. Like in any relationship, like it doesn't have to be even someone going through a mental health obstacle or crisis. Like you said, it's just in life in general, with your brother, your sister, your friend. Like it, I think, again, it comes back to that people want to feel understood, and they want to feel like you actually, and then the step further is it shows that you care. It shows that you're willing to take the time and say, no, how are you really? Like, I want to know how you're doing because I care about you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
so
also,
those are great ideas that I haven't thought about, with like the mental health Monday and mental wellness Monday, or how you called it. But those are things that I can implement, and I think other people can implement as well.
and I think that to me is one of the more important things that I wish to convey with the Mental Wellness Monday posts on social media is a lot of people like are excited to post on Mondays because they know that I'm gonna like post about it. So but something else that like I would want to encourage is like, it doesn't take much for, if you felt comfortable sharing and you feel comfortable asking, then it only can go so far if I'm the one who's doing it or if Angela's the one who's doing it. It's a challenge to the community. The way we build community is by encouraging others to ask the same questions and be there for their community. Also, like when they feel that they are I think supported enough, or like when they feel strong enough, because it is a very vulnerable thing to post.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know how to respond to people who share on your wall, but for us, we can only take it so far. And so it's a matter of asking those reliable members of your community to share, and then to start help kind of spreading that seed a little bit.
Yeah, and add to that too, it's like it can be something very simple too to bridge from digital to real life also. So there was a month or so ago, you and I were texting before our meetup, and you're like, "How are you?" And I was like, "I have anxiety right now because I'm with a lot of work situations that make me really uncomfortable." He's like, "Well, great, let's just go get some ice cream." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great. I want to do that."
So good.
I got ice cream before the meetup, and it was like a very simple gesture, but it was like it really helped calm me down, because it was like you reached out, I responded, and then we were able to just get together and just have a fun moment that was really helpful.
Yeah. So, okay. So switching gears a little bit. So, you have these meetups, and you're starting to build community, and you're really adding value to people. Where does Music Minds Matter come in? Did you guys just look at each other one day and say, "Hey, we need to make this bigger. We need to impact more people"? How did that idea start to formulate?
I think that we felt, I don't want to say like external pressures, or we were just kind of doing our thing with the meetup, and like we were completely fine doing the meetup, and kind of, we weren't really looking for the recognition. We were certainly looking to our community for help on like, how can we open this window wider for more people in the community.
Yeah.
So more of like an outreach thing, but we were kind of encouraged by some higher ups in the community that they're like, you guys are doing really important work. We were encouraged to apply for some grants through arts and venues. And so our first round of funding came from Denver Arts and Venues, their grant called the Denver Music Advancement Grant. And so yeah, we got this money, and we're like, okay, cool. How can we make the meetup better? And then in our second year, we applied, and they funded us a little bit more money. And so it encouraged us. It's like, well, maybe what we're doing is impactful, but maybe we can like start doing more than just the meetup. And not to devalue the meetup at all, because it is kind of the cornerstone of what we do right now. But it really has encouraged us to kind of take a step back and think of like, don't really like limit ourselves. Like, what can we actually do? What are the resources that we have? And with these grant funds, what are some of the things that we can do to better support our music community?
Yeah. And it's been an interesting evolution as well, because it actually originally started as Mental Wellness Monday, because we were doing the meetups on Monday, and then we decided, okay, well, let's move it from Monday to Sunday, because we got feedback from the community that Mondays don't always work, so we changed it to Mental Wellness Meetup. And then we continued to do it, and then we got feedback. Well, they're like, and it's been interesting, the feedback we've got too, when we try to approach certain groups or organizations about doing it, and there's still that stigma, right, of like, I don't know if we want to outwardly promote it. We can do it quietly over here. It's like, well, that's not really how we want to do it. Like, how can we get people? We've also gotten feedback that having the word mental in the title like also has like some undertones to it. So we decided let's like rebrand. musicmindsmatter.org and .com are both available. So I love that. It's a very positive spin on it. The meetup can be then one program underneath this organization, but we can start to grow it in a way that serves the community, because the goal would be that it becomes bigger than us, right? That we provide these opportunities for folks wherever they may be, because one of our biggest challenges has been we have these meetups, which is awesome, and people show up in real life. But what happens if they experience something, the day after a meetup?
Mm-hmm.
They have to wait 4 weeks for the next one. Or like, well, how do we fill that gap between when the meetups are happening, and how do we be available for folks? And what I'm seeing a lot in this kind of space too, when you're blending music and mental wellness, there's a lot of conversation, which is awesome. And we're seeing a lot of groups like doing benefit shows, which I think
Oh,
is
nice.
right. And like they're like, that's what we know how to do in this industry, is like throw shows. But there's a lot of white space then, leading, in between those shows.
Yeah.
So how do we, again, have those resources that are available to people when they need it, not just when we're producing a meetup or an event?
Yeah.
And something that's been really impactful as well is we started the meetup as like a peer support group.
Mm-hmm.
And something that we pride ourselves on is being like musicians started
Mm-hmm.
wellness like support group. And so the idea with Music Minds Matter is now we want to kind of broaden that horizon and say like there's only so much support that peers can add. Like we can only give so much support. So Music Minds Matter is now starting to put the pieces together with like local mental health facilities or private practice in order to like best facilitate what the musician or what the artist needs.
Yeah.
And so we kind of want to become this like all-inclusive location for a musician to come kind of vent their frustrations, feel the support from their peers, but then have us have a good enough connection with our community in order to best direct them for the supports that they need professionally. That way we can start working on the recovery of the music community.
Yeah.
And make it accessible for folks, because oftentimes too, like as a musician, right, you may or may not have health insurance, you may or may not have to afford traditional therapy, but there are options out there. And so making sure that folks are aware and able to get those resources in a capacity that are accessible to them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big issue I didn't even think about the health insurance piece, like if you don't have, maybe they don't have a job because music is their full-time thing. And so that can get really expensive really quick. And even being able to find those resources and knowing where to look and who to call and how much it's going to be and if someone's experiencing any sort of mental unwellness, then to add that on top of it becomes infeasible. Like it seems like a mountain that they can't even see the top of, let alone get to the top of it.
Well, and most times people who are experiencing any mental unwellness, they won't go and seek help at like the very onset of it. Yep. They usually wait until it's unbearable. Yep. And so for us to kind of have an idea of what it's like to try to find a therapist and kind of all of the hoops that you have to jump through, it could be very triggering for a lot of people. So essentially what we're trying to do is lay the foundation and do the groundwork ourselves in order to like make these connections with people, let them know what we're doing and what our organization is doing, and then allowing the musicians to come in, and we've kind of already paved the path for them to get the supports that they need and in a timely fashion. So we're hoping to, with the meetup as well, to kind of normalize the discussion of mental unwellness so that people don't have to wait until they're at crisis to look for help. If they're starting to feel the onset or they're feeling uneasy, that they can lean on their peers to have those conversations to de-escalate before it gets to that massive point.
Yeah. So moving forward, it sounds like you have more ideas with the meetup and whatnot. With Music Minds Matter, what does the future look like? What are you guys planning? What are the goals that you have? I'm personally very curious to learn because I love what you're doing, and I think that the audience is curious as well.
Well, we actually just put together our kind of plan today.
Okay. Whoa. Good timing for me to ask.
It's been a busy day, Joey. It's been a busy
Lots of coffee. 2 coffee shops, 3 cups of coffee deep.
I don't know if I'll ever have an Americano again.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, one, and this, yes, it's a good time, but also like my head is full of ideas. And so we'll see which one of these sticks. But of course, continuing the meetup and also expanding the meetup to have it happen more often in different places.
Okay.
Again, it's almost that AA model in a sense where you can go find a meetup that's happening that's convenient to you in a time that you need.
Yep.
It's not just one time a month that you may or may not be able to attend.
Yep.
2, it's partnering with more mental health professionals and therapists and making that available to folks. We can be that conduit between helping folks find help when they need it before. So a much more heavy focus on preventative opportunities. And do you want to talk a little bit about the festival stuff?
Yeah. So we're starting to implement music festival programming. And so we're based in Denver, but we have such a wealth of support in Fort Collins, Colorado. And so over the last 4 years, our band, The Hollow, has been playing in this music festival. And we've been implementing the mental wellness meetup in Fort Collins on and off. It's been very difficult for us. It's about an hour and a half commute, which isn't terrible, but I mean, like a round trip. Snow. And so we've dabbled in establishing a mental wellness meetup in Fort Collins and have it be consistent, because we don't want to start something that we can't follow up on. That abandoned thing is something that's very real too. So in Fort Collins, they have a music festival called FOCO MX. That's hosted by the Fort Collins Musicians Association. And they're one of the higher ups at FOCO MX, her name is Greta. She has been a massive champion of our meetups and the mental wellness meetup and Music Minds Matter. And so anyway, we've tried to chat about some different opportunities and possibilities of Music Minds Matter, helping musicians at music festivals. We're kind of doing a little implementation of our stoplight check-in, where we're actually going to give artists at the music festival friendship bracelets. And they're going to be red, yellow, and green. And the artists can choose to wear whatever color that they're feeling on that specific day. With partnerships with different mental health professionals, we'll have them kind of walking around the music venues during the festival, and then they can see in a nonverbal communication with the musicians how they're feeling. So if they're wearing blue, a therapist can walk up to them and say like, "Oh, I see you're doing really well. That's really great. Would you like to talk about it?" Or if they're wearing yellow or red, they can actually have an intimate conversation in the space that we have reserved at the festival. So now it's giving the musicians an opportunity to go to a music festival. And as a musician, I know that there's a lot of stress that comes at playing a music festival, although music festivals are what we call musicians' Christmas.
Christmas is a stressful time too. Hey,
exactly.
The same thing. So much fun, so much joy, and also stressful.
So the idea is to be able to provide for the musicians, give the musicians the opportunity to participate in bettering their mental health through the support of professionals. And that's something that we're kind of beta-ing right now.
Okay.
The festival takes place the last week in April, so we have some time to kind of establish and finalize some of those ideas. But it's very encouraging, and it's really cool to think that this is kind of the ground level of getting therapists and paid professionals to these events to start caring for the musicians.
And 2 more things I'll add to that too. So another one, so Spencer's already trained to do mental health first aid certification, my instructor's training, hopefully at the end of this month. So then we'll be able to offer free mental health first aid classes for the music community, and we want to do that this quarter. And so we'll be training folks to be certified in mental health first aid, so that means they're everywhere. So when you're at a show, at rehearsal with your friends, and just making that information more readily available for folks. So I'm really excited about that program. And 2, a more kind of broad opportunities, we're going to be getting a lot of materials printed and just kind of flood the market with resources, right? So one, my favorite idea, these coasters, we actually found them, I think it was the UK or somewhere in overseas, but they have these coasters. It's basically look around the table, is a mate missing, like contact that person. Right. So like when you're in a social setting, it's just like a really nice, friendly reminder. It's like, look around, who's with you, who's not, and maybe outreach that person that's not there. oftentimes that's what folks need, is they just need someone to reach out.
Mhm.
Also, we have these amazing posters designed by our friend Phoebe.
Mhm.
And so and on these posters, they look like a show poster,
Yeah.
but it has the information about the crisis center. One of them
Nice.
will actually have a tear off, right? So like the tear off that has the crisis number on it. And the other one will have kind of a prompt to take a photo of this poster and just save it on your phone so you have the information.
That's really cool. Yeah, those are great ideas. I know when Spencer and I spoke, you were talking about some so far sounds idea too. So I don't know if those are still in the work.
Yeah, they're definitely in the works, and I think that for us, we're currently working on getting our 501c3.
Mm-hmm.
So once we become a nonprofit, we'll actually be able to accept donations and like have
Okay.
and things like that. So we're thinking that I think I'm getting ready to have a conversation with Brandy, who runs the So Far Sounds here in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have that kind of conversation I've pitched her the idea, and I think the next conversation is going to be finalizing some of those ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But pending the success of that has some massive opportunity to not only institute this kind of programming here in Denver, but because So Far Sounds is a national and international group,
Yeah.
it would offer us opportunity to travel, start having these specific shows that deal with mental wellness. And then also we have the opportunity to start implementing our mental wellness meetups in these different music communities with the bands that participate in these specific events.
So can you share a little bit more about what that idea is? Because I know, but the people listening don't know. So I recently, probably a month ago, my fiance and I went to a So Far concert here in Portland, and they're just so cool. But I think what your idea is super magical, because everyone in the audience gets to experience that. The musicians get to experience that almost. I'm sure it might be almost like a therapeutic, almost like an experience to be heard. And then, there was 50, 70 people when we went, and everyone in that community, at least in the Portland area, I'm sure in Denver and a lot of these other cities, they're more open to that community. They're more open to hear. They're more open to share, and they're more open to maybe digest some of that information and be a sponge to it. And maybe they're not familiar with mental wellness. Maybe they're not familiar with those sort of things. And so I think this is a really interesting opportunity to get it out, to not only help the musicians, but also to just share the message. So if either of you can share what that looks like, that'd be great.
Yeah, I would say that something that the Hollow has participated in 2 So Far shows here in Denver. And for listeners who are unaware of what So Far Sounds is, it's intimate, private concerts that are invite only. And essentially you get invited to these shows by joining a mailing list, and they'll send out an email, and the first 30 or 50 people who respond to it are RSVP'd, and you get a reply back that says a date, a time, and a venue. And that's all the information that you get. So usually some of these shows are kind of like BYOB. You show up with like blankets and pillows or like camping chairs to sit. And you never find out about the musicians until the day of the show. And so usually the way the setup is there's 3 bands, and each band plays 4 songs. It's kind of up to the band if they want to play their kind of full set or if they want to do like a stripped down thing. But the idea that we were having,
real quick too, but one of the rules is like no talking during the set. So for any music lovers, one of my biggest pet peeves, you go to a show, you're in the front row, and then you just talk to your friend the whole time instead of music. So here, one of the rules of the So Far show is there's no talking while the artist is performing, which as an artist, I know I wasn't on stage, but can be a little bit nerve-wracking, right?
Definitely. I mean, all of the attention is on you, It's intimate. So yeah, I mean, So Far they have like 5 different rules. One of them is like no talking during the sets. Another rule is you have to stay for all 3 bands. Another rule is you can be on your phone only if you're taking video or taking pictures of the bands, and then they provide all of the band's social media accounts and everything like that. It's like musicians heaven. Like you pray for crowds like this, and this is what I love about the So Far community as far as the people who are attending the shows. It's like music lovers. They go, they don't care what the music sounds like. They go because they love the excitement of learning about new music and seeing new artists. It gets them out of their comfort zone as far as the music that they listen to. And so the idea that we had was we would present a mental health night, where the 3 bands that were participating would be open to sharing some of their mental unwellnesses, or how they've used music as either a coping tool or how music actually participates in their mental unwellness. And the idea would be the band would show up and they would play 2 songs. They'd play their bangers, like give the people what they want. And then the 3rd song would be a song that had significance with mental wellness. Then I would come in and kind of facilitate and ask questions to the band about the significance of the song and what that song means to them, and kind of what they were going through when they were writing the song. Mm-hmm. And then the 4th song would be the 3rd song, but they would play it again. And it gives the audience an opportunity to hear the song, knowing the full weight and the full capacity of the story. And I think that what that's going to do is going to start to break down these barriers of fan and artist. I think it's going to help humanize the artist a little bit. And I also think that it's going to shed some light. So often people are so impacted by music and they say, this song saved my life. It got me through a really hard time. But rarely do people ask the artist what they were going through when they were writing that song or when they performed that song. And so now I think it's going to give a little bit of light that the artist isn't necessarily accustomed to getting. I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for artists to start sharing their stories and be heard in these specific settings like So Far Sound shows.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. I mean, those shows are great. And I think, again, people will really resonate and it'll benefit both the musician and the people listening. So you guys have some really, really cool ideas for not only just like helping out musicians in general, but making these experiences to the music festivals, these other types of shows. It all comes back to, in a way, normalizing that mental wellness and mental unwellness experience that as humans we all go through. And I think it's just another platform and another medium to share, because I think one thing that I've experienced through this process of creating this podcast is the more that I talk about my mental health and the positives and the negatives of it, one, the more it benefits me, but 2, the more it benefits other people, and I didn't know what to expect with this. And my idea was just, okay, I'm going to share my story, and I'm going to share the story of other really incredible people, either that are business owners that are just, building their business and experiencing some mental health obstacles, or people that are actually trying to change the narrative of mental health. Mm-hmm. And it's been really powerful for me personally just to experience that. And then 2, other people have reached out and they've said, yeah, I've experienced the same thing. I've experienced the same thing that you went through, or, the people that were on your podcast, what they said really resonated with me. And so I think it's the same thing. You guys are doing that at a different scale, a different audience. And I think you're going to impact thousands, if not tens of thousands with this. And I think it's incredibly powerful, and just very excited for you guys because it's just really cool. So anything else you would like to share just in general about mental health, maybe in terms of as you're starting this? I guess that's one last question that for both of you, you're now building in a way a business out of this. A nonprofit still is a business. You need cash flow, you need marketing, you need sales, quote unquote. So how has that been for your personal mental health, trying to build something like this?
Go ahead, Angel.
Well, I would say one for me, like this is something I can get excited about. It's like, it's my passion of being able to blend and social good and mental wellness. And so it's been a nice release from my work my last 12 months of work has been a roller coaster, which has a whole different podcast. And so it's an opportunity to actually build something that, 1, I'm interested in, 2, I have a passion for, and 3, it's like they can actually have an impact. So for me, it's been humbling, and it's also been rewarding to have something like that I can get behind versus going to job at an agency where I'm selling things that I really don't give a shit about.
Yeah.
I think for me, if everything were to end today, I would feel grateful, and I would feel good that knowing that we have done good already. And it's wonderful because I don't have to currently think about what the business model is going to look like. I don't need to know currently where our money is coming from.
Yep.
Because right now we're in such a great place in just starting that right now the only thing, regardless if we had all the money in the world or if we have the money that we have now, the intention is the same, and it's us helping the community and helping musicians and people of the music community towards recovery. Yeah. And I feel so passionately about that I'm so confident in I get this confidence from the people in our community who are professionals and have been in the game for so long.
Yeah.
The words of encouragement of them telling us that we're on the right path and that if we need anything as we grow, that they're going to be there for us. Yeah. Take a lot of the pressure off of starting your own business. To have such a supportive community, experienced professionals tell you that the work that you're doing, people that you revere and look up to, having them look at you and say the work that you're doing is really powerful, and if you need anything, we'll be here. It allows me to focus solely on helping out people who need the help and making connections with the people who can do that. And to me, it's the most rewarding thing on the planet. We've had a full day already today, and I'm so energized. And we're co-hosting an event this evening at a movie theater here in Fort Collins, where we watch a movie that has significance in mental health, and then we host one of our meetups afterwards.
That's super cool.
And we've been doing this. Will be our third iteration of this. We do these every like 6 to 8 weeks, but I mean, it's already the growth and the amount of support has just been overflowing, and I'm so excited to keep it going and don't really need to worry about where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I want to take a moment too and thank you, Joey, for having this platform and putting this work in, because it is phenomenal, and we're so appreciative, because more often than not when we talk about what we do, of course, like stigma comes up and people ask us, how do we break the stigma? And my answer is always just have the conversation. Right? Just start the conversation, and it can be as simple as that. And so what you're doing, the work you've already done and giving us the opportunity to be on your platform is just really, it's awesome.
Yeah, and revealing your vulnerability a little bit, man, and like having this platform and using it to like help inspire people to tell their stories. And I mean, also a huge shout out to Becky who kind of lesson.
It's been so long, and that I forgot that Becky was
old Becklets, man. She's and the work that she's doing. And I think that this is how we continue to have the conversation in a positive light, is by having the conversation and by sharing our stories and continuing to do so. So again, we thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if anybody needs any more information on what we do, musicmindsmatter.org is the place to go. And that's where you can learn more about us.
Please, just from a personal perspective, keep me updated on when you become a 501c3, because I know from my business, as my business grows, I'm definitely going to want a chunk of that to be able to donate to incredible organizations like you guys. And I know that other people, I'm in a business communities, and I know that a lot of these business owners, they want, once they get to a certain point, it's not about just making money. It's about driving impact and helping people. And I'm sure that they would be interested in what you're doing. So please keep me updated on when that goes through. And then personally from our business, we would love to contribute.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. We appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Cool.
Sweet, man.
All right. We'll talk to you. Bye.
Wonderful day.
Bye.